Inniswell Ministries International presents Stories for My Grandson. Hi, grandson. Grandma has a story for you. Are you ready? Let's go. Well, way back in the Bible days. Now, Jesus had died, but his disciples are the apostles now, and they're forming the early church. And so they are like growing the numbers of believers, and the authorities see this, and they're like, "Hey, you got all these widows and fatherless out here. Y'all need to be taken care of." And so they started, they said that to the church, and the church is like, "Cool, like we'll give you money for that." And so people gave what they could. Now there was a couple named Ananias and Sapphira. So what they did was it sold this land and said, we're going to give the proceeds of this land to the church for the widows and the fatherless. Well, they sell the land and then they come in and they only give a portion. So Ananias comes in and he's like, "This is what I sold the land for. Here you go." And no, he comes in and gives them the money. And they're like, "Is this what you sold the land for?" He's talking to Peter. Peter's like, "Is this what you sold the land for?" And he's like, "Yeah." And Peter just had a knowing in him. And he's like, you're not shorting me. You're robbing God. Like this was an agreement that you made with him, basically, is what he's saying. You're not, you're not robbing me. You're not taking nothing from me. You're robbing God. And he said, "No, that's what I sold it for." And from his greed, because he didn't have to sell the land at all. I almost lost my mic. He didn't have to sell the land at all. This was something that he was voluntarily doing. But why you lying? Why you lying? And you lying to God about you frauding God on this one. And so God struck him down. And so they go to his wife. And why does she lie too? And guess what? She fell out dead too. And it was greed. It was like, you didn't even have to do that. Like, people were voluntarily giving, voluntarily tithing, whatever they could to help the widows and the fatherless. And so just don't do it. You ain't gotta lie. I wanna and today's lesson is a lesson about greed, but I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about tithing. Because basically they were tithing the proceeds from this land that they sold. Now, you didn't have to do that. So because you did it, you if you needed the money, don't promise God what you're not going to give him. And so tithing is about you giving from your heart because you want to give, no matter what the amount is. That you're giving what you're promising God what you in your heart want to give. And because they lied out of their greed, God struck them down because all these 7 deadly sins end in death. The wages of sin is death. And so it was greed because once they sold it and got that money in their hand, they're like, "Oh, nah, we'll always have the poor with us." Okay, well, so greed is an issue, and your word is your bond, and so you have to keep your word. But yeah, the penalties of greed is yeah. So, grandson, greed is not a good thing. Hoarding money, like keeping money, there's saving, there's investing, but just like holding on to money gets you nowhere. Holding on to things, not sharing, gets you nowhere. Greed gets you nowhere. All right, grandson. Well, you learned about two things today. You learned about tithing, giving out of your abundance, and you learned about greed, saying you gonna give, and then when you get that money in your hand, you're like, "Oh, nah." All right, well, join us again next time when In His Will Ministry International presents Stories for My Grandson. Until then, bye.